Welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This lesson is part of Project Pack number 11. Can't believe it.
I know, right?
My name is Martha Huggins.
And I am her sister, Molly Halaba.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
Today we're going to be working with the materials found in this Project Pack 11. They are available from some of our certified Zentangle teachers and also on Zentangle.com. But as with our other project packs, if you have some things at home that you're able to follow along with us, we very much welcome you to do that.
Ready to go?
I'm ready.
If you are just starting out here with Project Pack 11, we do recommend going back and watching the introductory video before going ahead with this lesson. It just has some great information there for you to pick up before going ahead with this really exciting new stuff. So we have in our tile envelope some really exciting stuff because for us, these are new tiles. So this is pretty exciting to be playing with you guys for the very first time. So we have what we're calling our phi tiles. And
Finally.
I know, finally, the fun has come. And for this lesson, we're actually going to be using two of them. So we're going to grab two of these beautifully die cut 100% cotton tiles. And then there's a cool little tool in there that is called our Marcus Operandus Part 2. It's the second in a series. We had
Very French.
I know, it's very French. And it is something you can use with the phi tiles, our other square tiles, and actually our 3Z tiles too. So some fun stuff to be had here. And then as far as tools go, we have some pens. We're going to be using a graphic one and a microno one, also in black. A couple different tortillones, a graphite pencil, and then some chalk pencils. And you should have gotten 3. I'm just going to start off using 2 of them. But you should have gotten 3 of various colors. And what's really fun is that everybody got different colors. So I'm sure you might have different colors than me. And I just picked these 2 to do my first tile. For these 2 tiles, we are going to be playing with a tangle called Inc. And Inc is actually one of my tangles. Came up with on a little journey when I was sort of looking at this big sculpture. And I was kind of, to me, looked like a, what would you say that's like a helix?
Double helix?
A double helix, yeah. It sort of looked like that.
Origami, really. It looks
Yeah.
very much like folded origami.
And I just kind of came up with a step-by-step fun way to draw something that was inspired by that and came up with Inc. But today we're going to be using Inc as a reticula and having some fun putting different fragments inside of the Inc, so to see what we can come up with. And because Inc is a vining tangle, it's really nice on this in this canvas, this shape, the rectangular shape. It just sort of lends itself to something like that. So the way we're going to start out is I'm going to use this phi finder, or our Marcus Operandus, just to sort of give us a little guidance. And that's what we've been doing with this a little bit here and there, is just sort of like allows us to put down a little bit of pencil to sort of, I guess, just guide us. So I have my phi finder fit into the, I guess, more portrait mode. And I have it situated so that I can mark B and C right here. And then I'm going to flip it over and mark B and C again. And then just very lightly, very, very lightly, I am just going to put 2 lines meeting those lines to just give me a bearing of where that sweet spot in the middle is. It's kind of fun, and I don't know, it's not exactly like making this to be this exact phi proportion thing, but in this case, it just gives us a space to play with. So I'm going to start with my graphic one. And the way we draw Inc to begin with, and I encourage you to just watch for a minute here, is I'm going to begin by, and notice I'm not actually drawing right now, I'm going to put a big zigzag all the way down my tile. So I like the zigzag to be kind of open and wide because it gives me a little bit more room to play. And it can be a little bit odd. It doesn't have to be exact. So I have something like that. The graphic one is a marker. It puts way more ink down, so you want to really be cautious about having your hand rub over it in the beginning because it can smudge if it hasn't quite dried yet. So just be kind of cognizant of that. All right, so now's the next step. So what I'm going to refer to is these mountain peaks here, and that's where I'm going to use sort of as reference points. So beginning at the top, I'm going to start my pen at this first mountain peak, and I'm going to travel downward to about halfway down on this line in the valley. So I'm going to go about halfway down, okay? Now I'm going to find this second mountain peak. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to go to the halfway-ish point there. This next mountain peak, and I'm going to go to the halfway point there. Okay? I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to visit the other side. I'm going to do the same thing, just with the opposite peaks. So I have, I'm going to ignore up here for a second because it's easier to do that after, but I'm going to look at this first peak here, and I'm going to travel about halfway down. This next mountain peak here, and I'm going to travel about halfway down. And here's the tricky part because this is, imaginary. So let's go to this mountain peak here, and let's imagine that there's a line coming down here. So I would draw a line that goes to there. So let's try to just guess. I think it would be something like that. And then let's go up here and kind of imagine the same thing. Let's say there was a peak. Say there was like a peak that went like right here. So when we drew, it would end up like about halfway right there. And we're just guessing to try to...
You also could leave it blank on the top and
Totally.
bottom too. If you just like the look of a complete triangle, you could customize yours.
Exactly. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, everybody take a deep breath. And we're going to just flip our tile upside down, right? It doesn't look that much different, but it actually is. And we're going to now do the same thing we just did. We're going to find that first peak, which is right here, and I'm going to travel halfway down to that line. To find the next peak, I'm going to travel halfway down to this line. And I'm going to find the next peak, and I'm going to guess this one is about there. Okay. And then I guess up here, if we were to imagine there was one maybe out here, a line that maybe came something like that. And on this side, halfway down. There we go. So that's our ing. And it kind of is just floating in the middle there. Pretty nice. And this is an awesome reticula for us to fill. So I'm going to do one more for you guys so that we have two. And then Martha and I will each fill one in different ways. All right. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to do it a little quicker here. Put it in my 5 finder. Find this B line, C. And I just put these in here as a way to have a little reference. If you want to skip this step, that's totally fine.
Everything is fine.
Everything's good. Everything's fine. But I do like this, something about putting pencil lines down first that sort of just like, I don't know, sets the stage a little bit. And now we're going to do a nice wide zig, zag. Okay. So here we go. Let's just imagine there's a point here, goes halfway, point, mountain peak, whatever you want to call it, halfway, halfway. Okay. Do the other side. This is a pretty obvious peak right here. Halfway, halfway, half. Let's imagine this one, half. You guys remember the next step? Oh yeah, it's to breathe. All right. Take a deep breath, turn it upside down. I like to keep things fun around here. All right, so let's find that peak halfway. Okay. All right. Very cool, right? So the trick with this ing to make it so it's not too tiny is really spread out that original zigzag line. Take your time with it, play around with it. You really want to go wider than those lines. So those lines end up being pretty helpful as a guide, because if you keep that original zigzag line wider than that, you'll get a nice roomy ing to play with. All right, are you ready to create some vining beautifulness here? So I am going to work with a filler that I actually use it quite a bit. And when you're playing with ing as a reticula, it's really just playing with any triangular fragment. So there's a ton of them in the primer. If you have a primer, you can look up in the fragment and reticula section, or reticula and fragment section. There's all these different fun fragments you can play with. And so this would be fun to just go nuts, like trying all of those. And then also we did create a space to do that also in the new legend booklet of the last project pack, to play with some triangular fragments. So a lot of space for exploration on that. So, I mean, once we do these ones together, you might go back and play with some of the other ones. All right, so I'm going to start here with the first full triangle, and then fill all the full triangles, and then I might go back and work with these ones that are falling off the edges. I'm going to be playing with my black Micron 01. And I am just going to begin by filling this first triangular section, putting a dot in the middle. And then I'm going to create these little sort of pod-like shapes that find their way into the corners. Okay. Once I have those pod-like shapes in there, I'm going to fill them just like peas in a pod. I like to start from the middle and work my way out the middle of the pod. If you want to kind of ink in the little sections, that's up to you. And then I'll proceed to do all three. All right. Once you have that in, I am going to just aura each. I feel like aura makes such a difference. Just putting in an aura around each one of these pod shapes. And then I'm actually going to put a second, let's do this little one too. And depending on how much room you have left, you can either just leave it with the one aura. I'm going to do a second aura that it's sort of a little bit, not going to touch it all the way to the top, just like as a fun little detail. but really depends on how much space you have left. Okay. And then I'm going to actually ink in that last space so it kind of makes it pop. Kind of a bunch of steps to that fragment, but it's beautiful, and it really, when you put them all together, it has a great look. So again, it was the little pod shapes and the little peas in the pod, and then we just threw in some auras and a little ink, and there we go. So I'm actually going to do that same filler on all of these shapes. Okay, so I have almost all of mine filled in. I'm going to go do these final ones. It does take a little while, so just be patient, enjoy the process. It's a nice time to just zone out. And that's why I kind of love playing with fragments, is you can kind of just figure out your steps and just go with it for a little bit.
I think it's part of what you can really gain from this experience is, I remember feeling a little anxious that I had so much to do and that somehow there was a race, I had to get it all done. But in fact, this is it. I mean, this is why we are all here doing this together. It is to slow down, to pause, to enjoy every stroke, embrace the coloring in.
I feel like now I just be like, oh yay, I have so much to do.
I know, it's the opposite.
Because it's the stuff I love to do. It's like, oh, how lucky am I to be able to sit here and tangle, and it doesn't matter when I finish, I can pause my video. It doesn't matter when it gets done. I can take my time, do a little here and a little there. So on this one, I'm just gonna, I'm actually just gonna pretend it pretty much goes to like right there, I think.
It's a triangle.
Yeah, it's a triangle. I could probably figure out the rest of it, but it's easy enough to do that. This last one here, I'm going to kind of guess a little bit because it is kind of falling off the end. So I think it would probably just have like one, really. All right, so I got all my triangles filled here. I'm going to add a couple more details before we think about shading. This is one detail you can leave out if you want or not, but it's one of my favorite things to do with a fragment like this. I'm going to go back, and can you see these little triangular shapes that we inked in? All along the outside, I'm going to put a little hump on the outside, and it kind of creates this sort of dimensional look. And it's not going to be too many because it's just where they face out. And I love to add little details like that just change. This one would be like that. Sort of gives it this unique look. I'm going to turn it around. Looks like gems or something, I don't know. There's one right here. Just like a little half circle. And then my last detail, again, optional. I'm just going to aura the whole thing. And I don't know what it is about adding just little details like this. It just gives it a really finished look. Turn it around and do the same thing. All right. Oh, that looks awesome already. I can't wait to shade it. And I'm going to let this ink dry because we just put a ton of ink in here. It took us a long time. You guys did awesome. Okay, Molly set me up already with this beautiful ing trellis. And we're going to get to work filling it with another fragment. So I am now using the 01 pen, a little bit finer tip than this graphic one that she used to set up the grid here. And I'm going to begin, again, with this sort of Sometimes if you don't know what to do, it's a great way to start filling in a fragment, and it's like an instant frame to set off your fillers, if you will. So I'm just going to actually draw an aura with my 01 pen inside, a very fine aura inside each one of these triangles. And just taking your time and turning your tile as you go and creating a nice fine aura on the inside of each triangle. Sometimes I kind of play around with where is the most comfortable place for my hand to draw a straight line, and it's easy to rush through sometimes, but remembering that we are here to enjoy these moments where we can kind of check out of whatever else we're supposed to be doing and decide that this right here is what we're supposed to be doing right now. One way you can remind yourself about the breath while you're tangling is each time you turn your tile, you can remember to breathe. And then, however yours looks on the end, you can decide to kind of go off the edge, I guess. Continue that idea here. All right, so now we're going to take these triangular spaces and fill them with sort of a combination of a tangle stroke that we know already and just add a little bit of enhancement to it. So I'm going to start by putting a circle in the center. Oh, it's about that big, but your circle could be a little larger or a little smaller. You can watch me first and kind of gauge how you would like yours to be set up. And I'm going to do the basic stroke of well inside this triangle. Often well is a filler for a square space, but it works just wonderfully in a triangular space as well. So what we're going to do is, if you have never drawn this tangle before, is I'm going to use a technique called take off and land, and I'm going to kind of start by tracing over the top of this circle, and my idea is to land on this corner down here. And I'm going to use the idea of the shape of a number 9, kind of a curvy number 9, and I say that over and over in my head so I always remember which direction to go in. If you're left-handed, and maybe something would be more familiar to you if you went in the opposite direction, you could kind of say the letter C in your head, and that might help you out. So I'm doing my first sort of number 9, and I land down here. And you see how I started out on the circle that I'd already drawn. I trace over it, and with a gentle curve, but I sort of land before the point, and it kind of gives it a graceful curve. And that's pretty much the stroke we're going to be using. And I'm going to turn my tile, and I'm going to do the same stroke in the same direction to this point right here. I'm going to start on the top of the circle, curve, and land down that way. Turn it again. So I'm always turning my tile in the same direction, and I'm always drawing in the same direction. Taking off at the top with a curved line and land. So I think what we'll do is we'll go through all of our triangular spaces with this basic filler, and then we'll build on it from there. Draw my circle in the center. And I'm trying to make my circles fairly similar in size. Then I take off and land. Turn my tile. Remember to have a light touch on your pen, especially when you're tracing over a line that you've already drawn. You don't want to muddy up your paper. So now I'm going to add, I guess, an enhancement, you might call it, that we have been sort of playfully calling peppering, which is, it resembles another tangle that we call pepper. And the way I'm going to approach that is I'm going to add some weighted ink at the bottom of these strokes that I've already put down. And you'll get into a rhythm with this as you go. But not only am I going to add it to the strokes that I've put there, I'm going to add a few more strokes in between. So I'm going to kind of keep that same motion and then add a little bit of weight at the bottom. You see that? Depending on how much room there is, you might add 2 or 3 or 4 extras in between. And then I get to this one that I've already done, so and I'm right-handed, and all of my weight seems to be flowing very naturally to the left. I'm turning my tile to the left, and I'm adding curved strokes and weight to the left. And remember to keep those curves going and you don't want really rigid straight lines here. You want to keep the enhancements sort of graceful.
Super cool.
Some people have a heavier weight at the end. You can kind of play around with how your look will come about.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on like how big your triangles were.
Yeah,
how much room
yeah.
do you have, all that stuff. But it's a nice compliment. You have that thicker outside line, which adding that ink kind of. That's great.
Yeah. So that's basically what we're going to do to each inside here. It's important to keep your tile moving in the same direction. Well, for a few reasons, but one of them is because there's a lot of ink going down on this tile and you don't want to smudge your work. I love how these different shapes kind of dictate how you have to respond. So we're teaching you a basic stroke, but your strokes are going to look different than mine because your triangles are different angles. And okay, so I think I may borrow my first idea that I had with the aura and again add a thin line on the outer edge going down each side. Taking my time. Really focusing on keeping my distance between the original thick line and my fine line as consistent as possible. And I am going to turn my tile and do the same on this side. There, so again, there's plenty of ink that we just put down here, so I think I'm going to put this one aside and maybe we'll revisit Yeah.
The
Get some color.
first one that Molly did.
Yeah, because we're working on these in tandem, we're sort of able to put one aside and let the ink kind of settle in. And then in your case, if you wanted to just put it aside for a minute, go get a drink, chill out for a minute, and then come back with the color, then that'll work too. You all got 3 different pencils, so I invite you to pick 2 of your pencil colors, and we're going to work with 2 different colors here. And or if you want to play with just one, that's cool too. But this is how I'm going to do it. I have a blue and a green here. I think it's called bright blue and sap green. So we'll see what you guys can figure out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little blue in all of these kind of nooks. And then I'm going to put some green just in the middle. And then I'm going to find a tortillon that kind of works with those colors. If you want to be really careful and use 2 different tortillons, you can. I'm going to kind of just play with one here. And just going to meet those colors. Sort of try to blend them together and see what happens. Kind of fun. So there we go. That's the plan here I'm going to go about. And I'm going to do that to all of my sections. All right, so I got all that color in, and look at that. Totally like changes the way it looks. Super fun. It's like stained glass or something. Love that. So I'm just going to do one more touch to finish this off. I'm going to add some graphite, optional. If you're like digging the way it looks right now, don't feel like you have to. I'm just going to add a little bit to that original zigzag, like sort of underneath it, almost to create a little layering. So I'm just putting like a heavy graphite down under that original zigzag, if you can find it. If you can't find it, just pretend you can find it, because it doesn't really matter. And I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm a bit heavy-handed with the graphite, but I like the way it adds some drama. So I'm just putting it all down nice and thick here. And I think I might do a little at the top here just to play with it. And then I'm going to find maybe, I don't know, I might use this same tortillon. You're going to have to figure out which tortillons go with which colors and graphite. Just blending it in over that color a little bit. Wow, look at all the layers here. It's exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these tiles take a little while. Just enjoy that time. If you need to do it in a couple sessions, don't sweat it. Don't rush. Watch the video a couple times if you have to. All right. Ooh, look at that. Do. That's awesome. All right, Martha, you're up. Hopefully we're dry here.
So I just chose 2 other colors that we had floating around here. Not sure what you have with yours, but maybe if you had one that was particularly lighter than the other, I may suggest that. And so I'm going to take the lighter of the 2 that I have here. This one I'm working with is yellow ochre. And I'm actually going to work my way from top to bottom so that I don't smudge anything with my hand. And I'm just going to take this pencil and gently add some color right around that first circle that we drew. You can see that. And then I'm going to, with some lighter tortillon, just blend that kind of in circular motion. Again, just with this yellow ochre, I'm going to do every one of these circles. I'm going to lay down some of this pretty orangey yellow chalk. Being mindful not to touch that white space in the center of the circle. I'm going to put the chalk on, this yellow chalk on all of these first, and then we're going to go back with another color after we blend them. I have a nice point on this, and I'm still on an angle a bit, but using that point to really control and not get any chalk on that white space in the middle. And as you use these pencils, you'll kind of get the groove of how they interact with the paper. And if you have a lot of ink, you may want to be gentle around those areas so you don't smudge or muddy the strokes that you put down. You can almost do some of your blending with the actual pencil, working it into the paper. You might want to play around with a few combinations of colors on the back of your tile or on another piece of paper, just to see how they combine. So I'm going to pick up this other color that I had selected, this scarlet red, and then I'm going to give it another aura of color around what we just blended. I'm not really going to fill in the whole fragment. I'm going to show you what I'm thinking. This looks pretty good. And I'm going to kind of gently blend it out to the corners. Again, on the edges of these triangles is a lot of ink, so you want to kind of be careful. You can see why when Molly was doing those original zigzagging ing structures that it is worth your while to have some exaggerated angles, because you get these nice big areas to work in. You can choose to have a light hand on all of the chalk that you're putting down, or kind of really dig in and get some deeper hues. There, that looks good. I mean, like I said, you can go back and add a little bit more color if you wanted to. Maybe I'll add a little bit of graphite, just a little bit, just because we can. Maybe just the same technique that Molly used, where we kind of try to find that original zigzaggy line and put some graphite just underneath.
It's funny, it's all about the layers. Like, I've tried so many times when I'm preparing for a project pack to like kind of like rush an idea and try to like work through something, and you really just have to actually work through the whole process and explore ideas from start to finish, because it just doesn't, rushing and Zentangle don't, they don't go together. You just can't do it. You can't like be like, I'm just gonna quick do this. You really just have to take your time and trust that this time is meant for this, and enjoy it and see what happens. And I think this is a great example. This is a fun idea. So as Martha and I were saying earlier, because we just took Ing and decided to play with it as a reticula, like this is like just the beginning. Like, find some other really cool fragments and throw them in this same template and see what you get. Like, have fun with it, explore it. Maybe you play with like every other, or maybe you, I mean, there's so many different ideas.
Or 12 different ones, or
right?
whatever, however many triangles we have here. Yeah, challenge yourself. Oh, that looks great.
It does look really pretty. Oh my goodness.
All right, let's see what we have. These are the two.
Here's our similar but different, right? We all started in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that forever, right?
Really pretty, yeah.
Very
And then
cool.
here's one that you did
earlier,
yeah. Even just the difference between these two are using the same colors and with more ink and more graphite, just the different touches of things.
Yeah. Great job, Martha.
Pretty cool.
Yep. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you later.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.